Welcome, I'm Gurab. Today, we're diving deep into a critical chapter of India's modern history, the Tripura Merger Agreement of 1949. This isn't just about legal documents or political decisions. It's about a people, a culture, and a legacy that still echoes in the hills and plains of Tripura. Let's understand what really happened when Tripura became part of the Indian Union, and what it meant for its indigenous identity, governance, and the struggles we still see today. Before 1949, Tripura was a princely state, ruled by the Manikya dynasty for centuries. It was not under direct British rule like other provinces, but governed autonomously under British paramountcy. The Manikya kings had their own army, administration, and laws. In 1947, when India gained independence, princely states were given a choice: join India, join Pakistan, or remain independent. Tripura chose to remain independent initially. However, the situation changed quickly due to internal and external pressures, especially after the death of Maharaja Bir Bikram Kishore Debarma in May 1947. After Maharaja Bir Bikram's death, his widow, Maharani Kanchan Prava Debi, took over the reins as regent, as the prince was a minor. The Maharani was deeply patriotic but cautious. Facing political pressure, instability, refugee crises due to partition, and threats of communist uprising, she signed the Instrument of Accession on the 13th of August 1947. However, this was limited accession. Tripura only gave control over defense, external affairs, and communications to the Indian government. On the 9th of September 1949, the Tripura Merger Agreement was signed in Shillong. It officially merged Tripura with the Dominion of India, effective from the 15th of October 1949. Key provisions of the merger agreement. First, the sovereignty of the Maharaja was abolished and all administration passed to the Government of India. Second, the privy purse was fixed at 1 lakh rupees per annum for the royal family. Third, all properties owned by the state were transferred to the Indian Union. Lastly, the agreement included a promise to protect the culture, land, and traditions of Tripura's indigenous population. However, unlike the Instrument of Accession, the merger agreement was not signed under duress, but there's historical debate on whether it was a voluntary decision or forced by circumstances. The agreement did not include explicit constitutional safeguards for indigenous Tripuris, unlike Article 370 for Kashmir or the 6th Schedule provisions. After the merger, Tripura became a C-category state under a chief commissioner from 1950 to 1956. In 1956, it became a union territory, and finally, in 1972, a full-fledged state of India. No elected legislature existed in Tripura till 1957. Tribal representation declined sharply in administrative structures. The delay in recognizing tribal identity and rights led to alienation, demographic change, and land loss for indigenous people. After the merger, partition refugees, mainly Bengalis from East Pakistan, were settled in Tripura, which drastically altered the demographic balance. Indigenous Tripuris, who actually made up about 80% of the population in 1947, became a minority by the 1980s, around 30%. The absence of constitutional safeguards for tribal land rights led to large-scale land alienation, encroachment on forest lands, and a decline in tribal languages and identity. This kind of marginalization later sparked armed insurgency, identity movements, and political demands for self-governance, like the demand for Tipraland. Even in 2025, the Tripura Merger Agreement is still at the heart of political mobilization by parties like Tipramottha, debates on land rights and identity, and demands for constitutional safeguards under the 6th Schedule or Article 244A. There's also a strong focus on cultural protection for the Kokborok language rituals and traditions. The lack of proper implementation of promises made during the merger has, honestly, created deep-rooted resentment and a sense of betrayal among the tribal communities. The original copy of the merger agreement is held in the National Archives of India, but its clauses are rarely discussed publicly. Legal experts argue that Tripura's unique historical identity should have earned its special constitutional status, similar to Nagaland or Mizoram. Some clauses of the agreement are actually seen as violated, especially those concerning cultural protection and land. The Tripura Merger Agreement is not just a historical document, it's a mirror of promises made and broken. Understanding it is crucial to respecting the aspirations of Tripura's indigenous communities, demanding justice and rightful safeguards, and, well, healing the historical wounds that continue to shape Tripura's political landscape. Let us not forget, history, when forgotten, repeats itself. When remembered, it guides us. Sources and references include the National Archives of India for Merger Agreement Records, Tripura, A Modern History by Amalendu Guha, Government of India. White papers on Indian States Constituent Assembly debates, research papers from Northeastern Hill University, articles from EPW, the HinduScroll.in, and the Telegraph, RTI reports and statements from Tipra Motha leadership, and archives of Tripura State Museum and Royal Palace. Disclaimer for educational use. This video and script are created purely for educational and awareness purposes. It draws from publicly available historical documents, academic sources, and government records. We fully respect the Indian Constitution and the democratic process.